Hey, what's up, everybody? M across the board. Ashley Miller, Sean Martin, and our very special guest, Mr. Gardner Royce. Looks like he's playing some video games, but we're happy to have him on the pod. Former sports anchor in the Albany area, now doing some new fun stuff. Gardner, thanks for coming on, man.
Eminem and M&G.
Eminem and M. So Eminem and G actually this week because
Eminem and G.
Eric's out this week. But yeah, thank you for filling in for us. And I know you are a huge NBA guy, so this was a
Yes.
perfect idea from Sean. He said, "Let's get Gardner on." I said, "Great, he can talk NBA because that guy watches a ton of NBA." So that's where we're going to
Yes.
start. Gardner, who's your team?
Well, my team is the Wizards, all
Okay,
DC
right.
based, but at the moment don't really have a dog in the fight. Except I would love for Chris Paul to finally get over the hump. I think
Yeah.
he has deserved a championship ring, but it's hard because I look at each team and I can, except for maybe the Grizzlies, I could talk myself into, well, if that team gets out of this series, like if the Celtics get out of the Bucks series and they keep going and going and going, they could go to the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
You think the thing that stood out for me last night, big night, Celtics gut check time in the fourth quarter.
Mhm.
But I want to go back. I don't know what the Memphis's record without Ja Morant is like really good this year. And you think with him out last night that it wasn't going to go their way. And there they were in the last minute with a chance to win. How underrated is the rest of the Grizzly roster? Or maybe I'm just not aware of it.
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, I heard that the record's like 20-5 without Ja, which is
Okay.
really incredible.
Yeah, that's
in
crazy.
the regular season, I believe, which I think just speaks to their depth, speaks to how good that team is, even without their superstar point guard. Um, at the same time, in the playoffs, you do need a guy that's going to be able to get you those buckets down the stretch, and I think that was something that they struggled with against the Warriors in, like you said, in a game that they probably should have won.
Mhm.
But if I'm not mistaken, Dylan Brooks was really, really bad. The Warriors had like a historically bad shooting night,
Terrible.
and they still pick it up.
Yeah.
So that was why going into that series for me, even outside of the Ja injury stuff, the Warriors just have the experience. This Grizzlies team is young. It's so fun. They're probably going to be a Western Conference perennial contender for the next 5+ years. This Warriors team's just done it. They've just done it for the last decade, which is why I have them, I think 6 games.
Yeah, and it sounds crazy to say like the Grizz had to get that win because obviously Ja wasn't playing, but you're so right. Like the Golden State Warriors missed their first 15 threes of the game. That is a game you have to get because the Golden State Warriors are not going to shoot that poorly all series long. And they haven't been great all series, and yet they've still managed to win. So that's definitely one that I felt like they had to get even without Ja Morant, which kind of sounds kind of crazy.
And one last thing on that. I think they go 20-5 without Ja because they're so deep, because they play so well as a team, even without, again, their superstar, leading point guard, whatever role you want to assign him. But in that game, when Dylan Brooks is essentially shooting them out of the game, he doesn't get subbed out. I mean, you have this deep team for that reason to say, hey, heat check time, that isn't Ja. Dylan Brooks has had a phenomenal season, but like, let's get him out for a little bit, try to get something different going because you have such a well-balanced team.
Well, let's go to Miami and Philly. I mean, Embiid comes back, and all of a sudden we have a series now. And I think the three of us kind of trashed James Harden a little bit last week during our recording, and here he is in Game 4, stepping up big. Is Miami in trouble, or is this just a case they're going to go home and maybe get a little more relaxed?
Heading into this series, I wish that before the playoffs, the NBA could just turn the injuries off.
Yeah.
Because this series with Embiid, I thought was going to be incredibly exciting, potentially 7 games.
Yep.
Pick your poison. I've been really high on Philly just because I think Embiid is so good. And I think even this version of James Harden is still a good playmaker. He is not an MVP in Houston, but still, if he could just if he could be that playmaker, get Maxey involved, get Harris, and now kind of shoulder some of the load with Embiid obviously hurt, I think they still can win this series. Them obviously now evening it up. It's anyone's game now, especially because it seems like Embiid hasn't gotten worse since he's been coming back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is exactly the type of series I had hoped for.
Yeah.
with the players that you want to be playing, except I think Lowry's not going to be playing. And he looked pretty hobbled with, I believe, that hamstring.
Yeah, listen, that was the Harden that we saw last game out in game 4 was the Harden that, that's like your typical James Harden when he's at his best. I also just think he's better when Joel Embiid is on the floor. It frees him up more. Joel Embiid takes attention away. Joel Embiid drew a triple team and still beat a triple team down low. So a lot of times Harden benefits from that. The guy had 31 points, and we saw that classic step back 3 that we were so used to seeing him make so often. 16 of those points came in the fourth quarter. That's the guy that Philadelphia has been missing, and they finally have him back. And then to have Embiid go 24 and 11, I think it was, like, that Philadelphia team is going to be very hard to beat. You just don't know if you're going to get that Philadelphia team every time out.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing, just watching Harden at times without Embiid, he seems to have a good sense of when you need to feed. Like Maxey is a blur. Maxey
Yep.
can go baseline to baseline in a second. And there are times when you see Harden, they'll get an offensive rebound and he'll immediately push. No one can set up in defense when Maxey's blitzing down the other end. And so I think even a James Harden of this version, if he's not going to go for 30 plus every night, he's so smart. I think that's something that does get lost with Harden's game because of the fouls and the whatever. But he is smart. He understands how to get different players involved. So I think that'll be a key for them, especially as we're now going back to Miami, where they're going to have to steal a game if they want to keep this going.
Yeah, and it's not the first time that we've seen Harden pass well. He's known for being a really good facilitator, but he shined in that role in game 4. On top of having 31 points, it felt like he made all the right decisions. He shot it when they needed him to, but he was very quick to pass it off to Green or down low to Embiid or to Maxey. Like, he was very quick to distribute as well.
Totally. I just cannot wait. We get 3 more games. I would take 10 more games because I like both teams so much.
Yeah.
Hey, last night after the Celtics win, I was on Twitter and I saw somebody post a video clip of Giannis getting in Al Horford's face.
Oh, yeah.
And the tweet said, I didn't see who wrote it. I didn't look at that. I looked at the tweet that said, I've seen that look before. They effing pissed him off.
His
and
wife.
Then I looked at it was from his wife, which just cracked me up. What impresses me about the Celtics, I'm a hockey guy. So some teams that like roll 4 lines at you, they come at you in waves. That's what seems like the Celtics do because they have so much talent and they're so deep. Is that their way to try and overwhelm the Bucks and just get through a battle of attrition here, especially with Chris Middleton sitting out?
Yeah, and I think also they just have a lot of weapons. And so Jason Tatum a couple games ago, it was his second worst playoff shooting night ever. And this is a dude who's been in the playoffs most years, if I'm not mistaken. He's been to multiple conference finals. He plays in big games. They've gone deep. So he has a lot of playoff experience. When Brown are playing well, 2 phenomenally gifted wings, then you also have Smart who's able to score. And then Horford does something like that. That's why a lot of teams have them upsetting the Bucks or upset, whatever you want to call it, because they don't have Middleton. But I just think them as a team, especially how good they are defensively on any given night, if their guys are going, they can essentially beat anyone.
Yeah, listen, I think Giannis, I've said this to other people, his post-game press conferences are must-watch television. He is the most likable, I think, person in the league because of just the way that he speaks and how fun he is and the childish nature that he plays with, the fun that he plays with. But last night, we saw a little bit of villain in Giannis for, I think, maybe the first time in a while. Like, we saw him get after Horford. He chirped at him a little bit, got teed up. Then we saw the Horford dunk where he elbows Giannis in the face on the way down. Like, things started to get chippy, and he also put his arm around Jaylen Brown, which Brown took exception to. So this is a Giannis that we're not used to seeing, but I think it worked against him last night because it just pissed them off.
Yeah, but I also think that I don't know at what point that was. If it was early in the fourth quarter, I don't exactly remember, where Boston starts coming back, and they start hitting these shots, and I think Bud kept Giannis on the bench. And I understand that there's a long series. You need Giannis, you need him. But like at a certain point, Bud, who has been criticized about his rotations in the past, but made exceptional decisions last year on their way to the finals, like that's a time where maybe you like call a timeout, get your all-world player back in there to just sort of stem the tide a little bit. Yeah, I think that the other thing with Giannis though will just be he charges at you so hard, and he's done it before. He can go for 40 plus, but some of those role players, as they did earlier, they're going to just have to step up in order to beat this because this is a very very good Boston team.
We got 3 out of 4 series are 2-2 going to
Yep.
game 5. We haven't even talked about Phoenix yet. The Suns, number 1 seed out west, struggled with the Pelicans. Now they're 2-2 with Dallas. I think Chris Paul is going to come out a little irritated after what happened with his family the other night, which was garbage. What do you see the next few games for each of these series? I'd love to see a bunch of game 7s here.
Yeah, I am so happy that so many of these are 2-2. I mean, it's like so often, especially when you had LeBron in Cleveland or Miami or the Warriors, they would just race through. So at least one of the series would be 4-0. It'd be 4-1. So the fact that we're all so tight in the second round is phenomenal. For the Suns and the Mavs, I think the Suns have been the best team in the NBA for kind of since the beginning. I just think Luka is so exceptionally talented, and the 2 games in Dallas went about as badly for Phoenix as possible. Chris Paul, I mean, getting that many fouls in the first half, the fact that they left him in with that many fouls was not a great decision. I still think Phoenix pulls it out just because they are a better team. But once you come into the playoffs, whichever team has the best player on the floor has a chance to win. And I think so far, Luka has been the best player.
Yeah, listen, the Suns they don't need Chris Paul to score 30 plus points, but they need him to be on the floor. He played 23 minutes, fouled out. He was 2 of 4 shooting. Like, that's not enough shots for Chris Paul. He just wasn't on the floor enough, and they can't win without him. Even if Devin Booker has 45, that's just not how that team is built to work. So I don't see that happening again. And as long as he's on the floor, I think the Suns win that series. But crazier stuff has happened. Like, a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith had a career night, and that's just something you can't account for. It's kind of like the Al Horford factor. You can't tell me that Bud circled Al Horford's name on the freaking shot sheet and their like game plan was like, yeah, mark this guy because he's going to go get 30. Like, those are just things you can't account for sometimes. So a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith will help the Mavs, but Kid has said many times, like, it can't just be Luka. It has to be Luka, and he needs some help.
And I totally agree with what you say. You don't need Chris Paul to score 30 points. You don't even need him to do the 14 of 14 when he set history. But like you said, you need him on the court. He also can't have 5 points.
Yeah.
This is the guy who, gets different people involved. And like you said, Booker can go off. But if you're the head of the snake in Chris Paul is watching from the sideline for most of it, it's just tough to get your other role players to get Ayton the touches that he needs because CP3 makes Ayton so much better. He can get the other guys involved. Again, I'm repeating myself. I cannot wait to see how these, final 3 games go.
I love it.
So how are they going to go?
Again, I think
putting you on the spot.
I think Phoenix pulls it out just because I think they're a better team. But I think with Luka, anything's possible. I think the Warriors are going to wrap it up. I had the Bucks at the beginning of the season series, even without Middleton. I had the Bucks in 7 games just because of the experience factor. I still sort of think that happens, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Celtics pull it out. I'm giving all these caveats so that I'm not wrong when that happens.
It goes 7 games though, right? We think.
Yes. Yeah. I absolutely believe it goes 7. And I think Miami goes 7. And that one to me now is a toss up because after it was 2-0, didn't know how healthy Joel was going to be. I thought Miami could do it, but now that he seems to be back and they seem to be clicking again, like I said at the beginning of the playoffs, I've been really high on this Philly team, and I think Embiid is one of the best players in the world, and so they could easily, it would not surprise me if they knock off top-seeded Miami.
Do you think Embiid got hosed on the MVP vote?
Personally,
Jokic is great.
It is
personally, I would have liked Embiid to get it, but I think I said this on Twitter. I have no issue with Joker because I think he deserves it. I think the biggest issue is the NBA has fundamentally failed how they announce the MVP. Give it right after the regular season because it is a regular season award.
Yep.
But by giving it in the second round of the playoffs, you inevitably have what happened to Dirk all those years ago. You with Joker, and then it just gives everyone all the
It
reasons
skews,
to
yeah. Creates
It's a regular season
criticism.
award.
Yep. Yeah, and listen, I agree. I would have given it to Embiid because I just think like if it wasn't going to be this year, then when is it going to be? Like
Absolutely.
I don't know that he's. There will always be that other guy, but the numbers without like the Nuggets without Joker on the floor are a horrendously bad team. So
Yes.
it just, and I get it. And I said this to someone the other day, like the Sixers without Embiid are probably not very good either, but like the numbers without Joker on the floor are like staggeringly different. So he is that team, and people
Yes.
understand that. So I think you're always just going to kind of get that when he has a season like he had. But yeah, I just think like if it didn't happen this year for Embiid, when the heck is it going to happen?
And I know you can't really think about it. It's supposed to be statistic based and all that, but I've talked to my friends about this too. The MVP award also, there's like a narrative.
Mhm.
Joel Embiid should have an MVP. And to
Mhm.
your point, if it doesn't happen now, is it going to happen next year? I don't know, because Giannis could come back, and Giannis could have won the MVP this year too. Could KD come back and do it? There are these different guys, and so if we're going to look back in 10 years and be like, wait, Embiid was the most dominant player, won the scoring title. He was also a force defensively, but he didn't get it. Like, God, that doesn't track.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Hey, let's project out a couple weeks here. Who's your NBA champion?
Ay, ay, ay.
Come on,
You're on the spot.
on the spot.
Let's see. I still think if the Suns can get through this, I still think they could beat the Warriors. It wouldn't surprise me if Steph Curry beats Chris Paul. Just
Yeah.
it'd be incredible. But yeah, if we got I mean a Suns Bucks rematch wouldn't surprise me. Any of those teams in the East, that's where it's very, very difficult for me to predict the East because I could see the Celtics coming out. Gun to my head, ay. I have no idea. Give me
Got a
Philly.
coin?
Give me Philly. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I'm still riding my
love that.
Celtics pick at the start.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
you picked the Celtics. Sean was on the Celtics early, so
Yeah.
I can
I
appreciate
like
that.
the Philly pick. Bold.
Yeah.
Very bold.
I feel, and this is, I'm so prisoner of the moment. I'm starting to sway Warriors over Suns just because, like you said, listen, I get it. The Suns have been there, but they've never won it. So they've been there, but not won it. The Warriors are always that, they have their core three who have been there and won it time after time. And so often that comes into play. Like it is very difficult to not play nearly your best basketball and still win postseason games. And they're one of the few teams that can do it.
Yep. And they have Jordan Poole, who's just been a sensation and creates defensive nightmares because you can't take any rest off. It's like you're going to have the guy guarding Steph. Steph goes down, then Poole comes in. Then, they're good. And it seems like they're going to potentially be the team that has the most rest heading into the conference finals because if they wrap this up, they'll have some more time off.
Yeah.
Hey, Gardner, is that Ovi on your shirt that I see?
Oh, yeah. It pains me. It pains me because the game last night was unbelievable.
Yeah, really good.
My dad was texting me. He's watching it down in DC. I mean, just a heartbreaking way for them to blow that. I don't know if you always kind of have to go for an empty net, right? Like you have to do it, but you got to hit it because you don't hit it, then it goes to overtime.
Yeah. That series, I think, has surprised a lot of people. But to me, the Penguins and the Caps are almost like the Warriors in that they've been there, they've done it, and they're playing teams that haven't done it. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know. I guess we shouldn't be surprised that the Caps are giving the Panthers like a run, but been there, done it.
But
so I always just think you can't rule them out.
But to your point, it's like that's why getting a win like that is what the experienced team is supposed to do. It's like, yeah, that was a tough one.
Hey, let's go. I got a little anecdote from Saturday, right? A buddy of mine up in Saratoga decided to go to a betting window rather than getting a voucher for the Kentucky Derby. And he was going to make a series of bets. And he happened to have the same name as the horse listed in your program as number 21.
Oh my God. This is
okay.
amazing.
His first name is not Strike. It's Rich. Okay. So he goes to the window instead of getting the voucher, like he always does. He goes to the window and he said, give me $1 to win on number 21. And the guy looked at him and goes, there's no number 21 in the program. So my buddy just kind of assumed that Rich Strike had been scratched.
Mm.
He didn't win. He didn't get his bet in. And he would have, how often do you bang an 82 to 1
I
shot?
was going to say, granted, I would have been a little more pissed if I was going to throw like 10, 20, 30 bucks on it, because now you're talking big money, but that's rough. Listen, my
lack of
dad's name is
communication.
Richard. He doesn't go by Rich, but had he looked at the entry, and most people I don't even think knew the horse was running, but had he looked at the entry and seen the name, no doubt he would have put money on it. And I was like, how did you not put money on this horse?
Wasn't there
He's a
like
big-
wasn't there a short window? Because I was reading on Twitter, some of the people down there was a very short window from where when Rich Strike was announced to where you could have put bets. So you kind of had to have known it perfectly, or
yeah,
or
I
am
mean,
wrong on that?
the horse was, so the deadline is Friday.
Right.
So the horse still has to be entered by
Mhm.
Friday. So technically you would know Friday.
Gotcha. Right.
So you've got almost a full 24 hours to bet, maybe a little less than that. But even the owner was like, dude, I didn't know until 30 seconds before the deadline Friday that my horse was going to run Saturday.
Uh-huh.
Just wild.
Have you guys seen the overhead shot of that coming around?
I can't stop watching it.
I didn't have my glasses on, but I counted 16 horses ahead of Rich Strike before they hit the far turn there. I mean, that jockey, I'll tell you, that jockey's a low circuit jockey.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No.
Because as they're coming through that turn, he squeezed Rich Strike through 2 other horses. I wouldn't drive a car that close if I was on the highway. With the little room he had, and he squeezed through and didn't bump anybody, and he was gone. I lost some money because I had Epicenter up there, but you know what? I'm okay with that because that was wild to watch.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. That was the one thing that when Ashley had mentioned we were going to talk about this, that I wanted to bring up, because obviously you watch it, you see the live feed, you see some of the different low angles, which are all great. I didn't see that overhead shot until later when it popped up. That's like one of the more amazing things.
It's amazing.
I sent it to my family. Like you said, I rewatched it. Even when I know that he's going to win, it still surprises me.
For the average watcher, which is you, me, the three of us, we are the average viewer. If you are not a horseman, you are watching the horse in the lead.
Yes.
You're not watching how things develop behind the race. So it is nearly impossible to know who was where when. You just kind of knew Epicenter and Zandon were at the front. And even like as he was coming up, I don't even think Larry Colmus knew who it was, because it was all of a sudden like he was even before anyone said the name Rich Strike at any point in the final 1 minute of that race. And it was like Rich Strike. And then he was past the finish line. But the overhead shot is so amazing because they arrow them and you really see how much ground he made up. I mean, he was far and away the fastest horse in that final. Like, he was just blitzing by people, which is unbelievable. And Jerry Bailey said it best, and I think this is a good perspective to have, was like, he said, when you put in a quarter mile and a half mile, he basically called it nuclear. He was like, when you put in a record-setting first quarter mile and half mile, he said, blow up all the statistics and expectations you have, because you've opened the door wide open for any horse to win, because you are just going to get a lot of favorites who then fall off because you can't sustain that pace. So it's just going to be like, who can sustain this nuclear, I think he called it suicidal pace. Like, and that's stuff that we don't really know, unless you're in the sport, you don't understand like, hey, yeah, that makes sense that things went haywire after a pace like that.
Well, they went haywire. I filed an appeal with New York Racing Association because my 3 horses, 3 of my 4 that I played in my triple, finished 15, 16, and 17. I should get something for that.
Something for being so bad.
I got to go 1 through 3. I got 15. See how hard that is to do?
Yeah.
So you said that we're the average viewer. That I'm glad you brought up Larry Colmus. Larry Colmus is not the average viewer. He is in the 0.0000 whatever percentage. And to your point, especially on that overhead or all of them, he seems surprised because he's not even watching Rich Strike coming up. So that made me feel a little bit better.
I would love to get his opinion on it. Like, talk to him about like, hey man, when did you know? What were you thinking? He probably had to look like what color is that number
Right.
21? Holy crap. Like,
Right.
You saw the 21 on the jockey sleeve, and I go, what the hell is that? There's only
Yeah.
24. I never. And how about that poor pony trying to escort
Oh
him
my
off the
God.
field
My
afterwards? This fight
God.
was fired up.
Start biting him.
he had like a chunk missing out of his neck.
Oh,
And there's a great picture of the horse. I know the guy has been criticized for how he handled it. But there's a great picture of the horse, like his mouth straight, like clamped onto that guy's leg who's riding the pony. Like he bit the pony, he bit the horseman,
you
the
mean because he
outrider.
punched him that he
Oh
got
yeah, he like
criticized?
whacked him on the head pretty good. I'm like, my thing is just let him go. He's got a
Yeah.
jockey on him. Just let him go. The jock can handle him and get him to the winner's circle. No big deal. But yeah, he was feisty. He was feeling good. He just won the Kentucky Derby. He was feeling good.
Wanted to run some more.
I feel like I've tapped out my expertise. So thank you guys for
Yeah.
letting me come on. I so despise that you made me pick a finals prediction because I'm going to be completely wrong. It's going to be the Grizzlies and the Heat, and I'm going to look like an idiot.
No.
And guess what? And if that happens, I'm going to call you out.
Good.
Gardner, full honesty, I picked the Nets to make it through the East. So I've
Okay,
gracefully bowed out a long time ago.
Good. No, well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you bringing me on and hope to do it again.
All
Yeah,
right.
Gardner,
Enjoy your
hopefully
hike,
see you
Gardner.
soon.
Thanks for the time,
Thank you.
man.
Thanks.
All right, buddy.
Gardner Royce, what a guy.
Yeah.
What a
I
guy.
didn't get a chance to ask him about the Commander's name change, but
Oh,
save
yeah,
that.
he's a
We'll
big
save
commander.
that
Yeah,
for
DC
next
guy.
time.
So Caps, I forgot about that. Caps, Commanders, Wiz. Yeah.
Yep.
He
Got them
said
all covered.
a somewhat rough sporting existence being a DC
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah, they keep changing
The
the name.
Caps fulfilled, you get
They
some.
got him one a few years ago.
Yeah.
Then they gave up a golden chance last night. Anyway, let's stay on the upsets, right?
Yeah.
This has to rank as one of the greatest upsets ever.
No doubt.
And I think the one part about it is it beat the top two horses in the betting field.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I don't even know if it was I think just the betting odds, like when you are 80-1 and you're winning a Triple Crown race. And let's be honest, the Kentucky Derby is the most prestigious of the Triple Crown races, unless you've won the two before the Belmont. Well, now we're talking about the most important race on the Triple Crown circuit. But yeah, when you start talking 80-1,
It is.
That's crazy.
What ranks with that? I know Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson, I think was 42-1.
Mm-hmm.
That was a stunner.
Yep.
I just can't see anything else in recent memory. Before the show, I go back to Chaminade over Virginia. I think in 1980 or 81, Ralph Sampson in the UVA was number one in the country, and the Holiday Classic or some sort of tournament out in Hawaii.
Yep.
And Chaminade beat him at like 2 a.m, and everybody woke up the next day and number one was on an airplane coming home.
Yeah.
With a big L slapped on the tail, the tail of the airplane.
Yeah, when I think big time, and we're just talking all sports upsets, obviously the Miracle on Ice is the one that comes to mind. We're talking hockey, U.S. over Russia in Lake Placid on the United States home turf. That one for me will always rank number one, I think. I wasn't even alive for it.
What?
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, I wasn't alive for it.
You're aging me. Thanks.
I was minus 6 years old.
Wow.
The origination of the word upset,
Yep.
the story, right? Like back in the 1900s, there's a horse named Upset before it was ever used to mean like an underdog beats a favorite. The horse Upset running in the Sanford Memorial Stakes against a slew of great horses, one of whom was Man of War, who had yet to lose a race in his career. And this horse named Upset at 100-1 goes out and upsets Man of War, or Man O' War, as they call him. So yeah, that's the original upset, which is cool. And I love that 100-1 is even better than those 80-1 odds we saw in the Derby. But that for me is just a cool story of how the word came about. So when we're talking horse racing, that's a cool one to bring up, I think.
The origins of upsets, though, if you really think about it, the great ones you get are a one-time deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You don't see a lot of 7-game series where you get monumental upsets. And if it does happen, it's usually in the first round. An 8 seed will take it down to number one. And you mentioned UMBC over Virginia. I'm picking up Virginia basketball a little bit now. That was a big one. For me, the greatest thriller of an upset was the 85. I'm aging myself again with you. The 85 NCAA tournament final Georgetown and Patrick Ewing was a
Yep.
big favorite over Villanova.
Nova.
Harold Jensen, Eddie Pinckney, and Villanova shoots like 88%. It was,
Yeah.
and they still only won by a couple points.
Yeah.
Tells you how good that Georgetown team was. They had played early in the year, and Georgetown had taken both times. That's most of these big upsets. You go back to the movie Miracle.
Mhm.
Kurt Russell is Herb Brooks, and then in the locker room he's giving a speech because we play him 10 times, we're probably going to win 9, but not
Yep.
tonight.
Right.
And that's what's so awesome about great upsets. And as a sports fan, you start to watch it. It's like an NCAA tournament every year. You see it happening, and you really get into it. You think, I'm going to be watching something big here, and that's what makes it fun to watch.
Yeah, and when you mentioned 85. What a great time to be alive in college basketball. 83, you get, when we talk about heroics, like a guy like Herb Brooks, and you've seen his speech and what he meant to that win. A guy like Jim Valvano, and when he went into that game with NC State, underdog team against this monstrous powerhouse juggernaut of a Houston team with Clyde Drexler and Akeem Olajuwon. Like that, nobody expected that, and they went in and knocked that team off. So college basketball at that time was unbelievable. And you also this isn't quite the equivalent of like a series, but think about 2006, that George Mason team.
Yeah.
That run in the NCAA tournament would kind of be the equivalent of a series for me. They beat number 5 Michigan State, number 3 North Carolina, number 7 Wichita State, and number 1 UConn to get to the Final Four, where they then lost to Florida. That is as good of a run in the NCAA tournament by a Cinderella as there has ever been. And we've seen that happen a lot more this year. In the past 5 years, I would say, we've seen underdogs make deeper runs into the NCAA tournament. But when you talk about those names, that's some tough stuff by George Mason.
Well, we just saw it with St. Peter's and the run they made. I mean, nobody would have picked that. Then that's as a wise man once said, that's why they play the games.
Yep, the VCUs of the world, the Wichita States. We've seen all those teams, Lehigh, Belmont. Those teams pull off a lot of singular upsets.
You even go back to your team, the NFL, the Giants, the Pat went to that Super Bowl unbeaten way back when, and went home with an L slapped on their tail fin of their airplane too.
Yeah,
I mean, what was that like for you?
That has to be one of the greatest moments in my sporting life. And I don't even know if I put that on my list when we did that. I don't think I did. Shame on me.
Roll that back.
Maybe we did. Maybe it was because I was concentrating so much on the bad memories that I had, because that tends to be the way that I go. Those are the ones that stick with me. I was a senior in college for that game, and I was a huge Giants fan, and we're all watching. And I was watching with enough people that were Patriots fans. And I despise the Patriots. I always have. Tom Brady's a little more likable to me now that he's not on the Patriots, but it's always been my most hated team, even over the Red Sox, I think. So I was watching that in our house senior year of college. And believe it or not, because I'm a Cuse girl at heart, this is going to sound crazy, but I should have brought it down. I should have worn it. I have a David Tyree jersey that I had before that Super Bowl.
Really?
Because I'm a weirdo and I love any Syracuse connection for me is fantastic. So I had a jersey like personalized to have Tyree with his number. I was in a David Tyree jersey.
Wow.
For that Super Bowl. So when he made that catch, you would have thought like the greatest thing in the history of the world had happened. And listen, it did. That catch was, would say it's the best catch in the NFL of all time.
Let me ask you this. So we're getting a little off the edge. I got to ask you, what was a better throw by Eli, the Tyree or the Manningham the next time they beat the Patriots?
Yeah. So for me, the greatest thing about the Tyree throw was him avoiding pressure, like on 3 separate occasions. Like somebody grabbed his jersey, he ducked, went under. Him keeping it alive was the best part of that. The throw to me wasn't that great, but he just kind of chucked it up because I think it was more of like a prayer than anything. Yeah. So I think the Manningham throw was better, but the situation of the Tyree, the pressure that they got on him and him keeping the play alive was the best part of that for Manning.
Hey, before I forget, go back to NC State. Have you ever seen that 30 for 30?
No.
Oh my God.
I haven't seen enough 30 for 30s. It is my goal to just like start way back when and just
Start with that
watch
one.
30 for 30s.
That 30 for 30, I need a box of tissue near me.
Yeah.
It's very emotional.
Mm.
And it's a great recalling of that run and just how amazing it was. They were almost out of that tournament a couple times. You can go back to the ACC tournament.
Yep.
Highly recommend that. I've watched most of them. That's one of the top 3 or 4. So
Wow.
give you something to do on your next day off with all that free time you got.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Hey, folks, this spring, it's the perfect time to get top dollar for your trade-in with the Kelley Blue Book Instant Cash Offer. Same day check in your hand the day you trade in your vehicle. The vehicle inventory continues to roll in at Mohawk Honda. To follow the newest vehicles coming in, follow Mohawk Honda on their Facebook, Twitter, and social media platforms. All of Mohawk Honda's sales and leasing consultants will work with you to find the best vehicle for your budget and lifestyle. Visit Mohawk Honda in Glenville, New York this spring. Mohawk Honda, where they always go out of their way to please you.
I'm disappointed that we don't get to say hot sauce anymore.
You know, we got to get him on here. We said we were gonna.
I know.
I have his contact info. We'll get him.
Yeah, we should.
NHL.
Let's start. Listen, we had Fluto on the broadcast 2 weeks ago now. And we talked about the matchup with the Hurricanes and how difficult it was going to be and how they were 0-3 against Carolina in the regular season. And now look, we've got a 2-2 series. They've been a different team at home.
Bruce Cassidy, I thought he was nuts in January when he took David Pastrnak off the perfection line. The result was that the team became deeper. Pastrnak livened up Taylor Hall a little bit, and the Bruins got hot the second half of the year. You go down 2-0 and no one's doing anything on offense. He puts Pasta back on the top line, and they've now just exploded. Marchand had 5 points the other day, 2 goals, 3 assists, had a hand in every one of the goals. Bergeron took a stick to the eye, but
that was rough.
He's a hockey player, though.
Yeah.
He went in for some repairs, and out he came.
Right.
And that's why I love him so much. He can never leave. Patrice, you cannot leave Boston, buddy. I'm sorry. So now it's 2-2, but things change. It's like the NBA we're talking about with Gardner. Sometimes things change when you go back home. Teams get a little more relaxed. Carolina looked a little rattled the other day. Tony DeAngelo, a loudmouth garbage player. He checks Curtis Lazar in the face with a stick and then goes up to him and it's like kept banging. I'm like, what's your problem, dude?
Right.
All right. A little out of control. I think Carolina got just a little rattled. But we'll see. If the Bruins can go in there tonight in Raleigh and get a win, now we're looking at taking care of this thing in 6, like I predicted. But it's not going to be easy. Carolina, it's tough going on the road in the NHL. I'm talking about Gardner's Caps with a golden opportunity to take a 3-1 lead last night. They didn't get it done. I think that the biggest shocker of the first round, the Rangers, Igor Shesterkin talking about an MVP candidate.
Yep.
I'm not blaming it all on him, but his confidence cannot be very good.
Yeah.
I expect him to ride him because he's the one that got him there, but
they are. Yeah. And he said they've already announced that he will start game 5. They're going to ride him. They have all the confidence in the world in him, but he's had back-to-back losses, the first of which he got pulled after the first period, the second of which he got pulled after the second period. And granted, game 4, there were within 24 seconds, 2 deflected pucks that got by him. So not everything is his fault, but they're giving up way too many goals and just not even giving themselves a chance to be in some of these games. But you're right. He was the best goalie most of the regular season. And it just looks like he's not himself.
He's not. And that's what's crazy about playoffs. Goaltending is a mental thing in some cases. They're all talented. But sometimes if you get in a guy's head, they just do not recover, and we'll see you next training camp. And I don't know if what's going on with him. I mean, a deflected puck is a deflected puck.
Yeah.
Are the Rangers rallying enough around in front of him? And even if you got to back off offensively a little bit, just to make sure he's settled in.
Right.
That's their only chance. Now, he's good enough. If he can get his head together, he's good enough they could still win the series.
No doubt.
But you're giving up 6-7 goals in today's NHL. I know the scoring's up a little bit, but not that high. This isn't 1985 anymore with with Edmonton, who, by the way, got 8 goals in their game 3 win
Yeah.
the other night. Sorry for your Preds. It was a tough matchup
Oh,
with
they
the Avs.
got it in the teeth. And you kind of knew they would.
Yeah.
Even who was it that said, was it the Flames coach? Was it Suter? Who said, I believe, like, a first round series against the Avs is a waste of 8 days.
Yeah.
And someone wrote, well, he was wrong. It was a waste of 7 days.
But you look around and it's a little like the NBA. It's tough. Calgary, I thought they were going to roll through Dallas. They're having a battle with their lives right now to keep it going.
Yeah.
And Toronto and Tampa. Can't figure out Toronto. I mean, they're giving up a ton of goals, but they're winning every other game.
Yep.
The Tampa coach John Cooper said, "Fine, if Jack Campbell wants to have a 3.5 goals against average, we're okay with that."
Right.
And then they went out and tattooed him for even more. So it was kind of some gamesmanship there.
Yeah. Listen, 6 of the 8 series, it was kind of like we talked about 3 of the 4 in the NBA. 6 of the 8, so same percentage, is tied 2-2.
Yeah, and go back to the Bruins for a second. Rod Brind'Amour, when he was a player with the Flyers and the Canes, a tough, hard-nosed player.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what he's doing. He's trying to do gamesmanship with the officials. But on Pugsley's Pit, I introduced an award last Friday, the first ever Whiny Bitch of the Week award, and gave it to Rod Brind'Amour for his whining over the refs in the Bruins game. And guess what? In yesterday's podcast, he became the second winner of that award because he just continues to whine.
Yeah.
He may get some calls tonight. We'll see how that goes. But he's not playing that gamesmanship thing very, very right now.
Yeah.
But again, we'll see. You know what? Carolina can go out and play their game tonight. And I wake up tomorrow irritated and, the Bruins' backs against the wall. So, but in the Toronto-Tampa series, that's been, if you want to, if you're a hockey novice and you want to take in a good, exciting playoff game with 2 great teams, watch that series.
Yeah. And listen, that Tampa Bay hasn't lost, and I get it. It's hard to lose consecutive playoff games and still win Stanley Cups. So it makes a little bit of sense, but they haven't lost consecutive playoff games in 3 years. So after every loss in a playoff, they had 17 consecutive wins. So they won 17 times after they lost. That's a good recipe for winning in the playoffs, is not losing back-to-back games. Losing back-to-back games is almost like the nail in the coffin. And that's why I think, like, I don't know that the Penguins are a better team than the Rangers, but down 3-1, now you have to win 3 games in a row. That task in the NHL is very, very difficult.
It is. You look at a team like Florida, 112 points or more. They were on the ropes in DC last night. And for them to get that overtime win, which is just a great play early on, they bang it. It is worlds different going home 2-2 with 2 of the next 3 at home than down 3-1. So I think the Caps had the golden opportunity, and we'll see what the Panthers can do with it. The Caps have surprised me. I didn't think they'd be any minutes for Florida. I figured 5 games.
Yep.
But again, that's crazy. And that's what's crazy about the hockey playoffs. Anything can happen. And home ice advantage can be great, but sometimes you don't have much of a home ice advantage.
At what point, if at all, does playing from behind bite the Panthers? Listen, they did it all season long. They had 24 come from behind wins, which is the most of anyone in the league. They had the best record in the regular season, but you can't play from behind in the playoffs and hope to win.
No, it's sooner or later it's gonna bite you. It's too much to do, and to keep expecting to come back. Yeah, okay, your team's got a lot of fight and a lot of grit, and that's great. But sometimes you got to have the lead, and you got to play with the lead, and then you can play your game. Get defensive. Bobrovsky can be a great goalie. He can be shaky at sometimes, but he'll also win you a series too. So I think they're going to be okay. I still like Toronto. I picked them to win. I picked them to go to the Cup final. But they have home ice, and we'll see up there. And when you get the Maple Leafs, I've talked about it before in the show, you get the anguish of their fan base. That is torturous. It's kind of fun to watch because it's not my team, though I'd love to see them win a cup. I think the city deserves it. It's been a long time. But those people, I'm telling you, the work product, if I'm a boss in the Toronto, Ontario area, I'm not getting a lot of productivity during this playoff run out of my employees because their mind is not on the job. Yeah. It's on game 5, as it should be.
Yeah, no doubt. And then I also just think like you picked the Avs early on. What they did to Nashville was impressive. I don't think surprising, but Cale Makar, 10 points through 4 playoff games is the most by a defenseman in NHL history.
Wow.
That seems absurd. 10 points for a defenseman in 4 games.
One of his first games in college at UMass, I saw UMass came to RPI.
Okay.
And I knew the name, and I knew he was in the lineup, and was just mesmerized at his ability. Now he's a freshman at D1 hockey, and you could just tell. Sometimes you could tell that these kids are elite, and you're like, "What's he even doing here?" You know, why isn't he up with the big leagues?
Right.
And he ended up winning a national title that year. Maybe that's why. I remember one of my cohorts from another paper asked RPI coach Dave Smith. He didn't really ask him a question, but he's like, "Boy, I really enjoyed watching Makar skate tonight. What'd you think?"
And Dave was like, "I hated watching it, actually."
Dave looked at him. He goes, "Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it." Dave certainly didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, he's he's on a different level even in the NHL, which is nearly impossible to do. To be on a different level in Division I, if you're an NHL player, at least I think probably at every level, it is pretty noticeable in the Division I game that you will be an NHL player. But to set yourself apart in the NHL, like he and Nathan MacKinnon have done, who is his teammate, is pretty incredible, because you don't see a tandem like that. The Avs just overwhelm you offensively. Like they just shove it down your throat over and over and over. And the speed with which they skate, the skill that they possess, stick skills, it's just so impressive.
Yep. And they're going to have a big advantage next round because St. Louis and Minnesota are beating each other up, and the Avs are now probably having an optional practice today.
Yeah.
Get their legs back about them. 4 great games. And at this point, you hope your opponent, the Wild and the Blues, let them go 7 and let them beat the holy hell out of each other, because hockey playoffs is just a battle of attrition.
Yeah, and I just don't think either of those teams has been overly impressive one way or the other. So I think either team would have their work cut out for them with the Avs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We ready for the whiteboard?
Yeah, I didn't tell you what I was doing, but I'm excited.
Go for it. Surprise me. I like surprise.
I know you're probably not going to like it.
Unless it's about Tom Brady going to the booth and Fox. Is it?
You guessed it.
How did I guess that?
It's because I want to knock him. Hold on a second here.
Oh, good. Bring it on.
First of all, it is who announces their retirement plans before they're retired? Oh, wait. He did retire once, and then 6 months later, not even, he unretired because he wasn't ready to retire because he's too good to retire. I was not on board with Tom Brady retiring because he was an MVP caliber player last year. Okay, makes sense. Don't retire, whatever. Don't retire in the first place. That's what drives me crazy. Now he has already said, Fox came out today and said that he will be in the booth for them as their analyst with Kevin Burkhardt as soon as he chooses to retire. What in the living, what is happening?
I think Drew Brees did the same thing, though, with NBC.
You can't do that. And not only that, I love Drew Brees. He's a different, for me, he's much more likable than Tom Brady.
Yeah, he's not a tool.
But now you've got CBS has Romo, NBC has Brees, ESPN has the Mannings in, whatever. Right. And then Fox has Tom Brady. That whole, this is one generation of quarterback. That whole class of quarterback has now found different networks to be a part of. But I saw these tweets, and this is exactly what I thought. You cannot say you wanted to retire to spend more time with your family, unretire, and then announce that you are going to do color for a national television network every week. You will be in a different city every week. Good luck with your family. I'm sure Giselle is so happy that you are going to retire and never see them.
It goes back. You done?
I'm done.
It goes back to what I can't believe you chose that as your topic, because I just saw it a half hour before we went on. It goes back to that retirement. That was a sham. He was trying to get traded, trying to force his way out of Tampa. He comes back the same day Bruce Arians gets relieved of his duties. Look, Tampa's sucking up to him and doing whatever. And okay, he won in a Super Bowl, and then you know what? He could win another one. But Yeah, he's talking out of both sides of his body
Mhm.
with the family thing, and now he's going to be. Look, he wants to stay in the public limelight. More power to him, but Jesus, be a little more consistent with your messaging, or hire Eric to be your PR guy. That's what he does. He's out doing PR stuff today.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric would get it right because whoever's advising him, he's all over the map.
Yeah, and he doesn't need help staying in the limelight. Anything he
No.
does, anything he tweets, anything he says is always in the limelight.
Yeah, by the way, I had a spirited reply to his Tuck Rule near admission on Twitter
Oh,
the
yeah.
other day. I was not suspended, but I
Good.
reminded him in case he missed my other tweets at him over the years what I think of him. So
I'm sure he did.
I'm sure he took it to
Sure he
heart.
missed all of them.
He should. He should. All right. We're going to go a little bit sports and a little bit political here. I think it needs to be said. WNBA season started. Look, Brittany Griner is sitting somewhere in a Russian jail. And, full disclosure, look, she broke the law.
Mhm.
She got caught doing something I'm sure she regrets. It's just kind of a warning to everybody that when you travel abroad, you better know what the rules and regulations and the laws are where you're going, especially when you have an authoritarian dictator who started a war with his. That said, she put herself in this position, but also the U.S. is now saying she's a wrongfully detained. And the thing that I'm surprised about is this should be a bigger deal.
Yeah.
Okay. They just had a U.S. serviceman exchanged and a prisoner swap a couple weeks ago. This should be a big deal. Brittany Griner is a big name. I'm not a massive WNBA fan, right? But I know the key players, but I know who she is.
Yep.
And I'm a little surprised that it's not more in the forefront. There's a lot going on in the news right now with politics and everything. I think her being a prominent athlete she's being singled out by the government. And I think there needs to be more talking done on this. Yeah. And the other part about it is the WNBA is how many years old?
Right.
Okay. The fact that even their top players have to go take the off seasons and go play in other countries to earn a wage that they desire, at least I'm a little surprised the WNBA salary structure isn't higher given the tie-in with the NBA. Maybe that becomes a topic too. I mean, look what the U.S. Women's national soccer team had to go through for a few years before getting some equal compensation. Not saying WNBA is going to be in the same part as the NBA, but their players, again, the fact that they have to travel abroad to make more money during the off season probably tells me all I need to know about the salary thing. So hopefully she gets out. What she did was wrong. She broke the law, but it wasn't.
But it's
not that bad.
Not 70 days jail worthy or whatever the heck we're at this point.
No.
Also, my guess is she will never play in Russia, which this is what I always think. Like, you want to draw stars. You want to draw, if you give a what about sports in Russia, you want Americans to come play for you, which is what everyone wants, unless it's hockey. Like, I get it. You're better at hockey than everybody else. You want Americans to come play basketball for you, whether it's men or women. This ain't going to do it for you because she will never play in Russia, nor will, I don't think, any potential WNBA player star ever again.
No. Why would you?
No.
Especially with their current government setup.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Nope.
You can be used as a political pawn at any time. So hopefully, again, she gets out. What she did was wrong, but it's not this wrong, like you said. So, and I'd like people to start talking about it a little more, and maybe that would help.
I mean, my guess is the Mercury, the WNBA, the U.S. government is on it, and we just, we're not hearing about it because there are no updates. But my guess is there are people who are working very hard to get her back. Yeah,
she has a court date coming up there. I can't find it here, but it's sometime in May. But still, it should have been done by now. So
yeah, what a joke.
Anyway, that's my political sports piece of the week.
I like it. Well, thanks for hanging out. It was nice to have Gardner. We thank Gardner Royce for coming on to hang out with us with Eric out. You can find us on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter at MMMATB1. We will post this later today. Today is Tuesday, so we'll post this hopefully later on today. Share it out, and hope you join us next week. We'll do more NBA, more NHL. I'm sure we'll be deeper into the playoffs, and we'll see what else comes along.
Awesome. Go Bruins.
Yeah, have a good week, Shawnee.
You too.